Hi, listeners, it's Tim here. And just before we get started with today's episode, I wanted to let you know about an exciting new development here at Top Music. And that's the launch of our brand new Guitar Teachers program, which is happening in October 2021. Building on our experience helping piano teachers have more fun, achieve more success, and feel more confident in both their teaching and business, we'll soon be opening the doors to do the same for the world's guitar teachers. So if you or someone you know is a guitar teacher of any level or ability, please head to topmusic.co/stay tuned so that we can let you know all the details when we go live. That's topmusic.co/stay tuned. That's all one word. Okay, let's get on with today's show.
You know, when you've spent months practicing and you go into an exam room, we've all done it, haven't we? We've walked into that exam room, down to the front to meet for the first time this stranger who's come to assess you. And that is a pretty intimidating situation.
Right.
And it gets the better of a lot of pupils, and they've come out thinking, I didn't really demonstrate to them what I'm capable of.
Hey teachers, welcome back to another episode of the Topcast. We've got a great show for you today, particularly if you're someone who has struggled with students taking exams. And by struggle, I mean maybe you haven't had the best experience or your students haven't had the best experience. And if you live in the UK or Australia in particular, some parts of Canada, you may well be familiar with the exam system. In fact, you may well have been brought up through the exam system. In fact, I can almost probably guarantee you probably did do exams. If you're a teacher who's an adult now and you grew up in one of those countries, you probably went through the exam system. And look, it's not always the most pleasant experience. And the different exam boards are very different and the experiences vary greatly, and the opportunities and the music presented in them is quite different, and there's lots of differences about them. And in fact, I've written a blog article a number of years back comparing the different exam boards and how all their systems work. So we'll put a link to that in our show notes for today's episode over at topmusic.co/episode 260. But today's episode is actually about a new exam board. Well, relatively new. It's been around for about 10 years. And it's called the Music Teachers Board. And the most amazing thing I think about this is that it's an exam board that was built from the ground up by people who are asking the question, what would we do if we did want to start an exam board from scratch today? Because most of the incumbent exam boards have been around for many, many years. In fact, over a century for at least some of them. So there's obviously, a number of challenges that having been a very long-serving and long-time organisation can bring that a new player in the market can do differently. And so that's what we're unpacking today. We actually have two members, the founder of the Music Teachers Board and one of the other team members joining us today for our conversation. As always, you'll be able to find all the links and information you need over at the show notes page at topmusic.co/episode 260. So my guest today, Mark Castle, who's the Chief Examiner, Founder and Head of Trumpet and Cornet at the Music Teachers Board, and also Naveen Arles. He's the Community and Development Manager. Well, welcome to the show, Mark and Nav. Great to see you and meet you finally.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Well, today we're here to unpack this brand new exam board. Well, actually, it's been around for a little while, but it's starting to gain some traction now, and it's come to my attention, and I've been hearing more and more about it. And it's called the Music Teachers Board, and you're headquartered in the UK. So can you tell us a little bit about the Music Teachers Board and how it all came to be?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first of all, I think what's quite important to know is that I'm a trumpet player and a teacher of some 40 years now, sort of experience really. And I'm also a father and a husband. And interestingly, all of those things were relevant to this MTB exams creation in a way.
Right. And I assume as a UK music student coming through, you would have done the ABRSM or Trinity College London exams of some sort. So you would have had that experience as a child too.
Precisely. Well, as a child, I did all the exams, and I've taught for, as you can sit here, decades, putting pupils through all the traditional exam boards. And I have children that have been taking exams, and I had a wife who worked in a school, and I was dealing with the GCSE exams at that school, doing the technology, if you like, to help her with those. And it was really interesting because I don't know if it's something that is common knowledge in Australia, but certainly in Britain, the GCSE, which is the exams taken at 16 years of age here, the music, the practical element of music exams are assessed using audio recordings of performances. And that's been going on for decades, which is something that I was experiencing a lot. And I was also putting my pupils through graded instrumental exams, coming out pretty unhappy and pretty like they felt that they'd had a horrible experience in many cases. My children were doing all sorts of activities, desperate to do their exam in this and that and the other, but came to music exams, they weren't at all keen on them. And I did feel to myself, this actually does seem like an opportunity because, GCSE has found a system where the pupils who go into these exams are just much happier and much less stressed. And the whole process seems a more positive one for them.
That's quite interesting because the exams over here for our year, so we don't do GCSEs in the same way, but for our year 12s, when they finish school, their performance exam is it's a live recital. So 30 minutes recital, you've got accompanist, all that kind of thing. So I'm really surprised to hear that this has been going on for some time in the recorded format, which of course, post-pandemic has become much more common.
Yes, decades and many, many years. I mean, I was recording these exams on not reel to reel, sorry.
Maybe aging you a bit too much.
on cassette recordings. Yes, and oh my goodness, it was a nightmare on cassette, you can imagine. But technology's moved on so much. And sort of really the point about this is that as a musician, and I'm sure you're aware of this, you build up a whole network of fantastic colleagues, great musicians. As a player, I've met so many fantastic musicians and teachers that I highly respected, and I got in touch with them all and said, look, why don't we use technology to overcome a lot of the problems that are associated with traditional exams? It was something that was mulling in my mind for many, many years. And they absolutely loved the idea because they were experiencing exactly the same problems as I was.
But it becomes a little bit of a different assessment, doesn't it? Because I think the original exam boards were all set up to assess a practical performance. That was the point of them. It wasn't to assess someone's ability to get a good recording done. And for good or bad, I'm not saying either way is the right way, but that is a shift, right? When we're assessing something slightly different.
Well,
or would you disagree?
It's a matter of opinion, because if you've got to remember that they had no choice when setting up original exam boards. It wasn't, I think we'll do a live exam. That's the reason because.
Oh, yes, true. Of course, yes.
There is no other way to do it. Your maths exam at school wasn't set up that way, or your art exam wasn't set up that way, or your other subject exams, your drama, they weren't set up that way necessarily. You sat in a room and but the point is there was no examiner coming to you for those situations. You just did an exam and handed it in. For the modern times, we've got the access to great technology. Obviously, there are new ways to make these things much more flexible, much more accessible, and much more approachable for pupils. So you're right in one way, is that it's a live experience is different to a recorded experience, and that is precisely why we did it, because the live experience itself is actually a very negative one for many pupils, which is a real shame. When you've spent months practicing and you go into an exam room, we've all done it, haven't we? We've walked into that exam room down to the front to meet for the first time this stranger who's come to assess you. And that is a pretty intimidating situation.
Right.
And it gets the better of a lot of pupils, and they've come out thinking, I didn't really demonstrate to them what I'm capable of. At MTB, what we want to hear is what you are capable of, not humiliate you, for example, if you don't show us what you're capable of.
Right.
So that is the real reason behind it. And that is the great advantage of it, actually, rather than a disadvantage, in my opinion.
Yes, I mean, there's unfortunately, it can be quite traumatic. I mean, I've accompanied lots of students, and some of them have come out in tears, and the examiners can be, I mean, they can really range. Some of them can be incredibly friendly and quite relaxed, and others can be absolutely hardcore and quite horrible. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and that is a problem that even the best exam boards will always struggle with. I imagined that. Yeah, Nav, you there?
Thank you for having us, and good morning, everybody. I say good morning. I don't know when you're listening to this, but there we go. Just as a thing, as Mark said, technology has moved on so much. So the differentiation, I think, of saying it's a live assessment versus coming up with a good recording, I think the fact that the reality of the technology that everybody's carrying around in their pockets means that you don't have to work to ensure a 1930s high quality BBC recording in a perfect studio, where you have the ability now, so long as you can try and get away from the car horns on the street, your phone has such good microphone technology that you have the complete capacity to be able to take a pretty decent live recording of what is happening wherever you are, so that MTB's basis is the magical relationship between the teacher and the student. In that safe space, the opportunity for all of these young people or self-learners or whoever they be to have an exam experience that is literally, my teacher and I are just going to assess how well I can kind of concert perform all of my preparation right now. I'm just bringing to the head everything I've worked on for the last couple of weeks, months, whatever it be, and I'm just going to do it to and in front of my teacher and see how it goes. And that security and safe space is a very, as you've just both described, very different assessment environment to the one where they're, cold walking into the room with someone they don't know. So MTB's kind of premise is that relationship and that safe space enables the student to be in a much freer and more secure performance environment, and therefore their ability to show their capacity on their instrument at that stage is very easy to assess and very simple. And that's what we're assessing. Their performance energy is now able to be assessed in our new performance exams. And that's something we can talk about in a moment. It's very exciting. But I just wanted to cut in on that idea that MTB is assessing a different thing and that we're assessing your ability to record yourself. That's not really the focus of the game. We use the technology, but we use the technology because the technology is now so good, you might as well have just been in the room live with the kid.
Yeah, and I think the other huge advantage is that you don't have to then have this huge waiting game that you play, and as your kids would have, and you probably did, Mark, as well, where you suddenly realise you're prepared for the exam in May, but you've booked in, because you had to book in 4 months in advance, and your exam's not till November, and we've just got to kind of fill in time and hope these pieces are still okay when we get there in November. So that's also a huge improvement.
Absolutely. I mean, you've brought us on to some of the other. I mean, it is actually quite a shock in a way for people when they first encounter the idea of an online exam, because if you were like me, you've been doing things for decades one way, and then suddenly you're doing something a different way, you think, well, it feels just different to you. But actually, after you get used to it, you realize, what on earth was I doing it? It's a bit like online banking for me, frankly. I don't know why I was going to the bank every week. It's just so much better experience. As you say, there are just numerous advantages to it, which we will cover. But one of them is the stress levels for teachers, because teachers have to make that decision very often in, I don't know where they had to work in Australia, but in Britain, September. Is my pupil going to be ready for their exam in December? Oh, well, if he practices, John might be ready to take his grade 3 clarinet in December. But if John's ill or he doesn't practice or things don't go to plan and he's not ready, oh my goodness, things get very stressful between you and the teacher. And if he fails, this is the whole crux of this, Tim. This is really very important. If he fails or has a really horrible experience, Tim may want to take that clarinet, put it back in the case, shut the lid, and never take it out again. And that is the one thing we'd really all want to avoid with MTB exams. And as you say, the other way around, your pupil John or something might be ready to take his grade 3 clarinet now and doesn't want to wait till December. Do you, as you said, do you wait? Do you tread water? Do you demotivate him by doing the same repertoire over and over? With MTB, of course, with this technology, you can now take the exam when you're ready. You don't have to wait. And if things go wrong, you've got that flexibility to solve it when you get to the point of exam.
Yeah, well, let's talk about how the exams actually work, because most exam boards now have, all performance or some exams with technique in them and sight reading and all that, and then you've got jazz ones. And so give us a quick overview of the main types of exams and how the grading works.
Yeah, most boards now, this is, if you like, a fairly new thing, I suppose. Most boards are now, since the pandemic began, offering two types of exams. They're offering practical grades and performance grades. MTB also have our two types of exams. We have our equivalent to, if you like, the online performance grades, which is a recital, but we also have our equivalent to the face-to-face exams, which is the MTB practical exam, which contains all the elements you would expect in a face-to-face exam: recital pieces, technical work, scales, reading, listening, all those aspects are covered. In fact, that's one of the if you like unique features of MTB is its online exam opportunities to do everything. So really, what you have to do, I don't know whether this is a sort of thing the Nav would show you on a screen, but I can outline the process. Basically, there's a recital section of 3 pieces. We have a recital list of pieces. You can choose any 3 pieces from the list. There's no list A, B, or C. You just choose any 3 pieces from the list, and that constitutes the first part of the exam. However, there's another great advantage to that section in that we offer complete free choice option for the recital section.
For one piece or all pieces?
All 3 pieces, if you wish, up to 3 pieces, can be free choice.
Wow,
they, of course, have, yeah, exactly. So they have to be of the appropriate grade standard. And if, for example, they are already graded by another board, then you can be pretty sure they have the right standard. If they're not, and you want to, if you've got a favorite book and you think this piece works for my students and me, I want to use this piece. I think it's grade 4. You could be a very experienced teacher and be pretty confident that's a grade 4 piece, or you can send it to us and we have a free choice approval service, which will confirm that that is appropriate for grade 4 for you. So we have a very, very wide and flexible choice over the repertoire for the recital.
And that goes for both the practical and the performance exams? Precisely.
Right. Yeah. And then there's the technical section. Sorry, did you want me to go into the whole thing? Is that good?
Yeah, yes. I think it'd be useful, actually. So, and just to sort of summarize what we've got 2 sets of exams. One, the student chooses, in both exams, they play 3 repertoire pieces, either from the list or free choice. In the performance exam, that is all they do. They just perform the pieces.
I will explain a little bit more about that for you. Not quite like that.
Okay.
The practical exam is 3 pieces plus technical exercises, specially written for your instrument by instrument specialists, something that's missed out in some boards. Scales, which are covered in the same way as other boards, and you do the whole list of scales. You have to do all the scales on the list. And then there's reading skills, which are based around understanding of rhythmic complexity. And then there's listening skills, which are sung oral tests or performing a duet ensemble piece, which is a listening skill. Obviously, as a musician, we need to be able to listen as well as play while we're playing, play with others. So that's the kind of overall format of the practical exam. The performance grade, which, as I say, replicates the new performance grades launched by other boards, is a recital of a duration. It's not a certain number of pieces. It's 4 or 5 pieces for a duration. So it's like you've got a concert slot in your lunchtime recital. You've got 15 minutes to do your concert. You need to play 4 or 5 pieces in that 15 minutes, and you need to present it and make sure that you perform and give everyone the experience. You have to think how you dress, what the occasion is, how the whole room looks, how you present yourself, how you present the pieces, how you engage with the music, and all those performance skills, which really is something that perhaps isn't necessarily thought about when you do practical grades. So it's a different animal, if you like.
Yeah, I can see that having a lot of appeal for students who struggle perhaps with the sight reading or the whatever it is, the other aspects of the exam, because I know that can add huge amounts of stress. I'm really interested, how does a sight reading work in a recorded exam? Do you give the teachers something to show the students?
No, we don't do sight reading. One thing you need to understand is that nothing in an MTB exam is unprepared. The whole exam is prepared. You prepare everything for the exam. You're not going to be presented with anything that you've seen for the first time, which is in itself quite a sort of reassuring thing for a pupil. They know what they're going to be faced with when they go into the exam. And so reading is actually, it works based on rhythm. It's clapping exercises. Different rhythms are covered at different grades. So, for example, at grade 3, it's compound time, 6, 8, 9, 8, 12, 8. And there's a set of 6 exercises with the pulse at different tempi. And you have to clap these written rhythms along with the pulse that's going on. And you practice those 6 exercises and perform those 6 exercises in the exam itself. And what's great about that is it does really, as a teacher, I've found, structure your ability to help people understand the concept of reading and particularly rhythm.
Got it. And therefore, then how does the assessment work? Do you have a numeric assessment or letter grades?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. You have to understand we're an Ofqual regulated board in Britain, exactly the same stature, same regulation as any of the other boards that you'll be familiar with. And we mark in exactly the same way: pass, merit, distinction. The exam's out of 100. And very similar to some other boards, it's 60 is the pass mark, 75 is merit, and 87 is distinction. And below that, you get, we don't have a fail, we have a blue category for people who fall below that.
Right. Yeah, I think that, the numeric way, it really does help as a teacher, or as a student as well, but as a teacher, really understand where the marks have been won and lost. And I think that's important. And it's not the case with all the exam boards that they do that.
Well, we also have a very structured numeric system. It's the pieces are broken down into accuracy, expression, and technique as well. So you can see exactly where you've gained and lost your marks, if you like.
And, on our website, which is very quick and simple to get to all the key information right at the top, there's a very simple clickable link to our complete sets of marking criteria. So teachers can get those. And for the practical exam, the performance exam, and then the diplomas, there's the possibility to see the exact marking criteria and structure that the students need to prepare towards. So I know a lot of teachers like to know about those and be able to kind of encourage their students towards, and make their students aware of what they're aiming for. So it's all available right there and very clearly and easily.
Yeah, it's a great website. I was actually just exploring it because I was talking to a teacher just today, and I thought your system would be perfect for her. So I was actually jumping on the website and bang, could easily find, I went to the piano and then I saw a keyboard as well because she's got kids that do more kind of rock pop music. So super easy to find. Everything's listed. You don't have to pay for it, which is great. And you can jump straight in and see exactly what is available, which is great. Would I be right in thinking that the levels align fairly consistently with other exam boards? So for a teacher, let's say they've been working with the Trinity College and their students at grade 3, they want to try out MTB. Could they go to MTB grade 4 and see a match?
Exactly, yes. Well, as an Ofqual regulated board, we have to set the equivalent qualification at exactly the same level. So there is exact clarity between all the boards in that respect.
Great. Nav, you?
Yeah. So on that point, therefore, the grade 6, 7, and 8, as per the UK system, which all the other UK-based boards use, that grade 6, 7, and 8
gain you what we call UCAS points, University College Application System. So it's real study, it's real work you have done. The assessment certificate gives you a real certificate of hours studied. Therefore, we have the system whereby in the UK and probably most Commonwealth countries, as you're applying for universities, specifically UK ones, you will have a criteria to get in, and that criteria is maybe marked on an AAB, kind of format of whatever A levels you did. But each of those will also carry a number of points, and these are UCAS points, University College Application System. So our grades 6, 7, and 8 carry the exact same UCAS point offering as any of the other boards also. So
great.
Hit the higher grades, and based on their past merit distinction marks, again, from the website, very quickly and easily, under accreditation, you can see what the marks breakdown is that you would achieve for this. And just to step back a second towards the previous point of your piano teacher friend who also teaches keyboard, etc. There is one other slightly differentiated model that we can very quickly cover off here, which is that in the practical exam, as Mark said, there are 3 pieces: the musicianship and technicals. So for instrumentation, that is generally used in the contemporary music industry, so to speak. So piano, guitar, and drums, we have a slightly altered contemporary exam model as well. So they'll be performing 4 pieces and the technicals. So there isn't a musicianship section of that. And so I guess for the students who are a little bit, I just want to play, performance driven, but are quite capable on their instruments, you've got this kind of model where they can, the technical exercises are also differentiated and have been newly created for technical, modern technique, so to speak. So an electrical guitar or, MT and other, modern vocal technique, and drummers who are playing off kits rather than percussive kind of wider stuff. And we have just released the percussion syllabus as well. So there are modes whereby the students of a more contemporary ilk can still also hit the practical exam, but with a slightly differentiated model. Sorry, just on the keyboard player, piano players, I just wanted to throw that in.
Tim, I wondered if it would be possible just to step back a moment, because one of the things that you were covering earlier was some of the advantages of what the system offers. And I think there are 2 important ones that we haven't mentioned that I think would be just worth people being aware of, actually, because they might not be aware of this. The first one is that MTB exams record, these recordings are done using an app.
Right.
Which means that you can download an app, which is the MTB Record and Submit app, which records the exam for you and submits the exam for you. So you've got none of the difficulties that you would encounter with very many of online systems of having to transfer files or anything like that.
It's an absolute nightmare. So I'm glad you brought that one up.
Exactly. So you basically use your phone or your tablet. You load on the app. You press record, it records the exam, you press submit, and it submits the exam.
And it's in one take?
In one take. You cannot stop it midway. You have to do the whole thing from beginning to end. If you chose to do the exam again, you would wipe the previous version, because the app will only hold one version of that exam reference number. So it's, very simple process for teachers to manage. The other and this is key, this is one of the most bizarre elements, if you like, of music exams over the last 100 years, is that examiners have been asked to examine a range of instruments, many of which they can't actually play themselves. You're being examined very often by someone who can't do what you are doing. And that is that is almost unique in the exam world, really, that people are examining something they can't do themselves. Now, with MTB exams, all the exams are sent to specialist examiners, instrument specialist examiners. A violin exam will be sent to a violinist to mark, a trumpet exam to a trumpet player, a singing exam to a singer. They are instrument specialists. They understand what they're marking. And one of the great things that we've had fed back to us, which is really heartening, I think, is that teachers have been saying to us they do love the mark sheets that they're getting from us, for 2 reasons. One, in that they're so helpful because they're coming from instrument specialists who can give them technical feedback and on what they're doing, as well as just with the notes and rhythms and dynamics. But they can also, our mark sheets are also said to be very human in their opinion, in their approach. That's some of the words that come up quite often, because they're not coldly written. They're written in a very helpful and sort of kind and human way. And that's kind of what we look for. And that's the other key thing about MTB exams. We believe, and this is at the heart of MTB exams' whole philosophy, we believe that the whole process of learning to play a musical instrument, as well as taking the exams, should be a positive and enjoyable one. We as teachers, we teach because we love music. That's why we teach. We want to transmit that joy and love to our pupils. And there's no room in that process for a stressful experience. And we talked about the stress before. So we want pupils to come out feeling like they had a positive, enjoyable experience, wanting to go on and learn, and to have been marked by a specialist examiner who knows what they're doing. And the whole process being easy with the app. I just wanted to mention those because they are key things in part of the process for MTB exams.
I'm glad you did bring them up, because I was going to ask, there's obviously a number of other exam boards out there, and they've all had to pivot during this period, and they've all done some form of online examining. However, what I'm learning from you is that you have built this from the ground up with very specific goals and mission in mind, which the other ones haven't. So they've had to pivot, and they've kind of had to go, oh, goodness, I'm going to have to change this. And they did it, and congratulations for them for doing it. However, it's a recorded version of what they already do. You've kind of gone, okay, well, how would we build this if we wanted to get this right from the ground up? And I think that's a key difference here.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. MTB exams was created well before the pandemic for as reasons we've talked about. The online exams is a possibility now. How would you do it if you were starting exams now, not 100 years ago? And the way you would do it is this way, because then you can give your exams easily to a specialist examiner. There's no reason why not. It's not a problem for us to do that. You send your exam in and we just assign an instrument specialist to it. If you're sending someone out to a centre.
I didn't know that was a thing. I really didn't. I don't know if it happens here in Australia. It's a bit foreign to me here, even though our exam boards are based on yours. But maybe I'm wrong. But I did know the ABRSM, that is the case. I did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. On examiners, I was going to ask how, because one of the challenges of traditional exam boards is making sure there's consistency between examiners, so you don't get the one that makes the kids cry and no one likes sending their kids to, and the other one's really friendly and gives everyone A's. And how do you achieve consistency, particularly when you're not in the same room or building or whatever with these people?
Well, can I say, it's actually, if you think about it again from the ground up here, it's much easier for us to assure this, because we have a recording of every single exam that comes in, and we, the body called the exam board, in inverted commas, can make sure every month that we check that the examining standards from our different examiners are equivalent. And we can do that very easily because we don't have to go out with them, sit next to them and watch them examine. We sit in a room, we look at the exams, we look at the marking, and it's an ongoing process of ensuring our examiners are marking to a consistent standard. Standardization is a hugely important part of an exam board, and it's a really important part of what we do. And of course, with recorded exams, it's so much easier to achieve on an ongoing basis, because we can see every single, if we get somebody who's not happy, we can go to that recording and listen to it and say, right, this is not right, or this is right, or it helps us a great deal to have that.
Makes a lot of sense. It almost makes me surprised that all the exam boards haven't initiated a recording process of their own, but then they haven't got the structures and the systems around it, and you'd have video files everywhere, and that would be a bit of a mess. So I really value that you've worked this out, and I assume you do some kind of proactive auditing, or you check with examiners in every so often, you watch one of their exams or something like that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's, as I say, on an ongoing basis, we're doing that, but we also have examiner training on a regular basis where we're all examining the same exams on our instruments and various things like this, and discussions take place and face-to-face chats about it. Oh, yes, there's a lot of that kind of thing.
And you could also have examiners in any country, I assume. Are most of them based in the UK, or are they all over the place?
Currently, they are all in the UK, but there is absolutely no reason why they couldn't be in any country. And actually, MTB is rolling out gradually internationally, and as maybe there's some regional content that might be coming in from people that we would have specialists who are probably better placed to examine some of those.
Now, I did want to talk about Tomplay because I'd heard of you guys some years ago, and then I don't know, lost track a little bit, and then I was approached by Tomplay. So Tomplay's a fantastic music reading app with backing tracks and all sorts of things. One that I'll be interviewing someone on shortly too. Anyway, I got diving into their stuff, and then I saw somebody interviewing somebody who uses MTB and uses the links with Tomplay. So can you tell us about this partnership and how it works? And more importantly, I guess, what's the benefit for teachers?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, one of the kind of things that we've done, which is actually quite radical in a way, is the use of free choice repertoire. And one of the other things in an MTB exam is that you can use a live pianist, but you can also use a backing track as an accompaniment if you wish.
So this is particularly for clarinets and trumpets and
solo
instruments.
Yeah. Exactly. And with the free choice repertoire, of course, that enables people to find pieces that they enjoy doing. They've got these backing tracks, but we thought, particularly with the pandemic, actually having the access to a recorded accompaniment, if you're doing an exam over Zoom, by the way, you can do that with the app. The student records the exam their end using the app. And but basically, over a pandemic, if you want to have an accompaniment for your piece, you may not be able to have a pianist in the room with you.
Yeah.
And we looked for ways to make it really accessible. We found Tomplay, and we loved Tomplay because it's got a huge range of pieces, which we put on the list for many of the instruments. They'll be added to others as well. There's not every instrument yet, but a lot of instruments have got a whole range of Tomplay pieces listed on each grade. And basically what you do is you click on the link to the piece. That takes you to Tomplay, you buy the piece, and when you do that, you get the sheet music for the student, the trumpet player, let's say, to play. You get the backing track or piano accompaniment audio for you to practice along with, which you can change the speed of for practicing. You can loop sections to be able to do bits of it. It's very flexible, and it makes it a lot of fun for the pupils to practice as well. That whole access to online content of written music and the accompaniment has been a huge help, really, for a lot of students.
Absolutely, great motivation. And teachers can go online to MTB's site and download the syllabus for any of the instruments and have a look, and it was great. I could click the link and Tomplay would open up and it would show me, and I could test it out. And I thought that was very clever, very modern approach, innovative. As you say, I mean, they're kind of simple things in some ways, but because the system has been so entrenched for many decades, centuries, it's taken someone like you guys to go, how would we do this from the ground up? And I've really appreciated learning more about it from that perspective. One of the challenges teachers will always face is if they've been teaching for any length of time and they're really used to an exam board, it becomes very comfortable, and the barrier to entry for you guys, I guess, in some ways, is the change hassle. And I mean, I've tested just about every exam board, I think, over the time of my teaching, because I kind of enjoy it. It just changes things up and I get to try new music and new processes, but that's not the case for all teachers. So have you got resources for teachers that would like to do a particular changeover, Nav?
So let me just put it like this. You can go to the website and sign up as an exam center. It'll take you 5 minutes and cost nothing. You can set up one of your students for an exam. You can register them for the exam. It'll take you 5 minutes on the website and it'll cost you whatever the exam costs. And then you could record them the next day, hit submit on the audio app, on the video app, which is the same app, and it's a download from the stores for free. And then you get your results within 2 weeks. So you end this recording go online, register as an exam center, get an email immediately with your exam center number. Takes 5 minutes. You then write to your student, go, shall we record the exam tomorrow? You're just waiting until they hit back on WhatsApp. Yes. And then you go online and you register them for the exam, which will take you 5 minutes. You know their name, their date of birth, the grade they're going for, the instrument. And then tomorrow they turn up, they record the exam on the app, which is you hit record, one clean take, you hit submit, take images of the scores to make sure that our examiners are looking at the additions that the student was delivering from, so we can really assess that. And then within 2 weeks, and a couple of weeks ago, I saw people getting results within 24 hours, which was alarming.
That's great.
But within 2 weeks, the marks sheet gets emailed back, a PDF with no crazy handwriting. It's all typed out so you can read it. And then
yep, we all know that's another issue.
That's another thing, right? So all of that process is now automated by a really excellent kind of back-end system that's been designed and integrated as we grow. So all of that happens like that. And to make sure that the people the world has moved everybody. So everybody is now a little bit more, okay, I go online, I use my computer to do these things, and I can have meetings with these things. Even if you weren't a cool person with an iPhone before and you FaceTimed your gran in Melbourne, that was some people, but now everybody's a bit here and a bit comfortable. But then what we have got is a free practice exam model in the examining kind of, so you go onto the register an exam, and you would automatically pick an instrument. But in that one of those sections, in the other section where piano actually exists, then, because piano is an other instrument, but then you would have a free practice exam. And what it does is it enables you to go through the whole process, charging you nothing. And then when you hit submit on the recording, it goes to no one. Everything else in the process is exactly as it would be for an actual exam recording. So you can do that on your own at home as a teacher a bunch of times just to get to know what the app is going to look like, what it's going to ask, when it's going to ask it, how that's going to feel. And then you can even do mock exams with the families at home to make sure that they know what it's going to feel like. And they know what the expectations are. And therefore, on the actual exam recording day, that student is not reading the nerves of the people around them, and that's influencing what they're about to do. Again, always thinking about having that student have that experience in that safe space with their teacher and it working perfectly well. And that all said, as Mark said before, once you've registered a student for an exam with an MTB registration, they've got a year to submit the actual exam. So depending on their budget and your sanity, you can just re-record and re-record and re-record as many times as you want before you hit go. It's only when you hit submit that the exam comes to us and therefore is handed to an examiner. So there are processes built in that will allow you to take the steps into MTB very easily with almost no challenge. And your teaching process won't change. The repertoire is a choice. That whole process you have with your students, that's not going to change. The actual doing of the exam just involves not having to go to an exam center with them, not having to have their families book half a day out to come out of work, pick up the kid, take them to the exam center, and just involves you deciding which day to record the exam on.
Am I right, Nav, in saying that there's also a parent guide on the website? Where is that?
So very quickly on the homepage, there's a how it works. And as you drop that down, right at the top of the how it works set of information, if you just scroll down a little bit, there's a little parent learner guide, nice 4-page, pretty pictures, bullet points, outline of everything that we've talked about this morning and that you'd want to know as an overview. And if you then go to the clickable link for, what's the app like? How do I get it? And what do I do with it? There's a video in which you will actually see Mark's beautiful face being on a little tablet screen as Mark guides a parent and a student at a piano through a full exam. We've just topped and tailed the music, so it's a nice quick 5-minute video that you can watch. So all the families at home, the teacher themselves, anybody they want to show it to can watch it and just go, that's what it looks like to do one of these. And that video represents a teacher teaching virtually to a family at home. So they're watching the teacher on the tablet screen. But if you just remove the tablet screen and put the teacher there live, you can just remove the parent, and it's the same thing. It's just you would use the device sitting on top of wherever to record. So that video will show anybody exactly how this works and how easy it is. And what I think we've also found and are loving is, yes, some people are a bit nervous about the change. So they're a bit nervous about the first time they do the process. Once they've done it, even once, they turn around and go, oh, wow, that was really easy to do. And then they're off. Then all of their fears are mitigated very quickly because they see that the app is so simple to use and has very clear instruction on it at every step of the way. So there's no way to get confused by it. Of course, technology can fox some people sometimes, or, power cuts. I don't really know how to explain those things, but pretty much within reason, it's a very, as you said, how if we went from building this ground up and having thought about the user experience, we've tested and tested and tried. So this pretty much is very easy.
Just one tiny thing to add, it's just because it's quite interesting on this point, is that I've noticed a few teachers who are very stressed by the thought of using a phone or using technology, but actually the pupils are great. So actually the pupils will often guide the teacher on how to use this. So if you're nervous, just ask your pupil. It's not a problem. They'll have no problem.
Given that, we're still in lockdown at the moment, I don't know if this would be a case that you've considered, but could a student record, if we're in a long period where the teacher and student are online, or an online-only teaching studio, can the student download the app and record themselves and submit when the teacher feels they're ready?
Yes, the whole point is that's exactly what Nav kind of was alluding to on that video. We have instigated this whole process to deal with online lockdown situations. Basically, you, the verifier, the teacher, are on Zoom on a screen, as you would be in a normal lesson time with your pupils. You are overseeing the exam, and as you quite rightly point out, the pupil downloads the app onto their phone, or their parent places it in a suitable place. So they are recording the whole exam from their end. So you're getting the same live experience as you would get if you were in the same room. It's the teacher that is remote, if you like, in this.
I see.
And the teacher is asking. Yeah, and they're asking them to play the scales, to announce their pieces, because the pupil announces the pieces they play. The teacher says, could you announce your first piece? The pupil. So it goes through the whole process exactly as you would if you were next to the pupil, but you're just not there. So yes, the answer is it's absolutely doable over Zoom.
Great.
And also during this lockdown situation, we are enabling people, if they cannot manage the technology of finding a remote digital accompaniments, they can perform pieces unaccompanied during this period of lockdown. So it's not a problem in that respect. Perfectly accessible during lockdown.
Sounds great. I got to say, I hope teachers listening are going, I might explore this a little bit because, clearly you've put so much thought and effort into this. You've really thought about the user experience. There's so many positives and benefits to it. I was even thinking, Nav, as you were talking, there's not much stopping a teacher from signing themselves up for a grade 3 or 4 exam on their instrument, having a look at the pieces, choosing a few they know or one that they love, and doing the exam themselves and just seeing the process from the student's perspective could be actually a really good experience.
One of the things I like to make people think about and leave them with is, what would happen if your music assessment could be done on any day, anywhere in the world, using any repertoire you really just wanted to play? What would that look like? Well, it would look like MTV, but for a moment, for instance, I run choirs. So as Mark said, all of us at MTV have a music background. So I've taught piano for 26 years on and off. I've run choirs for 26 years on and off. And one of my choirs now is in prison. I now have the potential to walk into the prison system, having obviously agreed it with them, and have the guys that I work with, having taught them whatever songs I want to, for free. I send the scores of those to MTV and I say, is this appropriate for grade whatever? Within a week, MTB will have had that music go to the exam team for that instrument, come back and say, yes, that's appropriate for grade whatever, or no, it's not because of. And because of the lack of copyright rules within the exam room, I could just amend the arrangement myself if I chose to, and then send it back, and they might agree it's now ready for grade 3. So whatever I've been teaching the guys in the prison environment for the term, I can pretty much just pull one aside, set up the video camera, run those 6 songs, go. Just tell me what they are before you do them. He sings them, and then I just hit submit on that recording anytime I like. And now MTV will come back with a real certificate for this guy who can then, look at, I've been validated by the outside world in a very real way. And if we're talking about rehabilitation and self-worth and the value, and we all know why music is so powerful for young people finding themselves and or anybody finding themselves. Here is a system that will now allow you to just take your student or even a self-learner who is in a room on their own, just trying to figure this out. Take the work that they have done at any point and feel rewarded by someone who just checks in on what they're doing. If I look at the exam system as I grew up too, having done the other boards, I don't enjoy the way that the exam system has been manipulated to match education processes. So therefore, this year I better get this grade, and next year I better get that grade, and then whatever. And if I get this grade, I'm now eligible for scholarships at school, or entry to that private school, or whatever it is. I don't feel like that should have ever been the way or the reason that we came up with these things. We came up with these things to be able to help a student mark their pathway and get excited about reaching a new goal. And now MTB's put that back on the table and said, well, that's exactly what it should be. It should be that, you don't have to, I just want to exist for exams. There are cultures in the world that very much enjoy that, and that's fine. But for us all globally, and even for the children in those cultures, they now have the possibility of just saying, but what if I just wanted to play Scottish folk fiddle? And I just, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to be a doctor, and I want to do, when I come home in the evening, that's what I want to play. Great, do it. And you've done the work to earn the right to play some of that stuff. And you've got better at some of those techniques. And, well, here's somebody that can nudge you along and go, yes, you've done that well. What about thinking about this now? You haven't quite got that down. So exactly what it should have been, a masterclass or an external lesson from another teacher who just pops in and checks in on you. And that's what this process allows the system to feel like again. It doesn't have to be stressy, just waiting for that one day where you go and see that one person who, by the way, doesn't play your instrument, tell you how you are or are not doing. This now becomes the music that I chose, the music that I wanted to develop towards, and a check-in at a point when I'm ready to have it about how I'm doing with my instrument.
Yeah, in the comfort of my own studio or my teacher's studio, etc. Yeah. Great summary, Nav, to kind of wrap things up. Mark, before we wrap, any sort of final comments or anything we've missed talking about today?
I think we've covered most things. The only thing that might be of interest to people is to know that MTB exams have 2 pre-grades, pre-grade introductory and pre-grade higher. I personally enjoy making sure my pupils have developed certain technical things really well before they start trying to play grade 1 music, and quite often they're a bit impatient to get to grade 1. So that allows you to if you like, just pace get into grade 1. So if you want to do pre-grade introductory, it's 3 pieces, technical exercise. That's all very straightforward, short exam, certificated in the same way as your grade 1, gives you the reward, motivates you a bit sooner. So that's just something else maybe that would be worth mentioning.
That's great. Well, look, congratulations for what you've built, Mark and Nav, the work you guys are doing. I think it's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing more about it. Where can people go to find out? What's the magic website address?
Music Teachers Board, right? Music Teachers Board. So you're just going to www.mtbexams.com.
mtbexams.com. We'll put links to that in the show notes and anything else we've mentioned today. Mark and Nav, thank you so much for joining me, and good luck as things go on. Hopefully this pandemic starts wrapping up soon for us and we can get back to a little bit more normal with our in-person lessons. But regardless, I think this is an incredible opportunity that ticks so many boxes that teachers out there who are listening will be going, oh, thank goodness someone has come up with this as a solution. So thank you very much, and great to meet you.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's chat with Mark and Nav from the Music Teachers Board. And if you are a teacher in any of the countries that Music Teachers Board works with, which is expanding all the time actually, then why don't you go and check them out? You can always download their app, test things out, have a trial, see how it goes, and see if it's something that may be valuable to your students. We all know that having clear goals and deadlines definitely helps students with progress. And so this could be a really great opportunity for those of you who are looking for a really flexible approach to assessment that can be done, very flexible approach to the music that's presented and also to the timing of when it can be done. So definitely go and check it out if you are interested in that. And next week on the podcast, we have actually got one of our expert teachers from Top Music Pro, the wonderful Melanie Bowes. Melanie's a group piano teacher and presenter and course developer over in the UK. And the wonderful Nicola Canton is going to be interviewing her all about what she's been up to and unpacking lots to do with group teaching next time on the podcast. We will see you then. For more information about this episode and to find out how to enhance your own teaching, visit topmusic.co. You'll find everything you need for your studio, from lesson plans to cheat sheets, quick win teaching ideas, and guides on how to build your teaching business. Plus, you'll be connected to a global community of the world's top music teachers. And when you're ready, join hundreds of other teachers around the world by becoming a Top Music Pro member and get access to all our bonus content and flagship courses. And don't forget to follow topmusic.co on social media and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. That's all for today. We'll see you in the studio.